for having me on, guys. This is awesome. I love gear, love talking all about it. So yeah, this is going to be really fun.
A lot of this equipment we're talking about is, it can be used for musicians and content creators in general, if you're a YouTuber.
And I've shot probably 90% of my show on this little camera.
I love you guys. Chris, you're just amazing. Jim, so are you. You guys are the best hosts ever, I think.
Just stop, please.
The best hosts ever, according to Jennifer Watson. We're going to keep playing that till it doesn't make us smile. Welcome to Dealcasters Live. My name is Chris Stone. I'm a cast ahead at castahead.net. And the gentleman, the better looking gentleman to the left side of your screen with the voice smooth as butter, my friend doing marketing the Marine Corps way, Mr. Jim Fuse. How are you, sir?
Happy Monday, Chris. It's hard to believe it's the last full week of May. It is also a somber time. I know it's Memorial Day, and, especially it's something I think of often because a lot of people think of Memorial Day as a celebration. And I would say if you're going to celebrate, do it in remembrance of all those folks that
That's right.
made the ultimate sacrifice for our country. Because I think sometimes people think it's just a big party weekend, but we need to remember what it's all about. And it's to remember those that have passed away. Veterans Day in November is when we remember those folks like me that are still above the earth, as we like to say.
I like to remember you on all days, Jim. It could be Memorial Day, it could be Veterans Day, it could be Groundhog's Day. I'd like to remember Jim Fuse, but yeah, man, I don't mean to make light of something that is very serious. And I'm glad you took that moment. It is something. It's not just a day off, right? For everyone, it's not just an opportunity to have a few extra, but for those of us, especially here in the States, celebrating it. And I say that because we have someone who's not in the States. In fact, it is 6:30 in the morning where our guest is today.
Yes.
So, and those of you who are interested in figuring out why, how do these knuckleheads or chuckleheads, according to you, Jim, that we talked about earlier, make all these graphics and do all of these things, and everybody says, oh, Chris, he does, Chris, Chris starts with great software. And so that's where all of this stuff started. That's where the Dealcasters Live logo came from. That's where all the templates and everything began, was with Easil. So as we were talking to our guest earlier, I'm trying not to fanboy. Jim, I'm trying not to fanboy.
I know,
but it's
okay if you do.
It's going to be. So let's do some housekeeping, and before we bring Annette on. And so if you're anywhere else besides Amazon, and we're on Amazon Live, and if you tuned in to watch Annette McDonald, and you've tuned in to figure out how you're going to make great looking graphics, and you're not on Amazon, you're like, well, how do I get on Amazon? We've made it easy. The way you got to do it is you go to dealcasters.live. Just go to your browser, type in dealcasters.live. That'll send you right here to Amazon, where we are. We love being on Amazon, and we love Amazon, but they gave us a URL, a link that looked like it was in hieroglyphics, basically. So we had to do something called a redirect. And so we bought a domain called dealcasters.live. And if that makes your brain kind of hurt a little bit, it's okay. It kind of made our brains hurt a little bit too. But believe it or not, it's easy and it's cheap. Inexpensive. In fact, it's less than a cup of coffee. It's $1.99 to get your own .live. That's right, $1.99 for you to get your own .live. And all you got to do is go to name.com/live, and the promo code is GetLive. It should auto-populate for you when you go and you search for your. So if your show is Security Lady, and you type in Security Lady .live, it should auto-populate with GetLive, and you can buy that for $1.99, and then you can send anyone anywhere you want them to go, and that's why we want you here on Amazon with my good buddy Jim Fuse. Jim,
Yes.
we have. Do we have any other housekeeping to talk about in terms of of this. If you're watching us and we see some viewers, that we have in various tubes out there, Facebook, Twitter, Twitch, all the tubes. Come over to dealcasters.live and
Join us on
with,
Amazon, right?
join us on Amazon, where we have people hanging out with us already. Jim, we've got the party here already. Security lady. I mentioned the security lady. So the security lady.live for $1.99, you can send someone there.
And Marco Novo is here. So this is like truly an international show today. We got Marco Novo watching from Portugal. Marco was smart enough to get a .live already as well. We've got our amazing guest we'll be bringing on here shortly, Annette McDonald from Australia. So who says that just because you're on Amazon, you can't have people watching from all over the world? I mean, who would have thunk?
Nobody says that. Who says? Nobody says that. Nobody should say that, right?
But they just don't know.
Exactly. Well, Jim, would you like to introduce our guest, or do you want me to introduce? How are we going to do this?
I will.
This is like something. Okay.
I know you're excited. So I will start the introduction.
Okay.
So for those of you that don't know, Annette McDonald, who's coming from us live from Queensland, Australia, is the founder and CEO of Easil. And you'd be saying, well, what exactly is Easil? Well, you're about to find out today. Easil is a software platform that allows you to do incredible graphics, especially if you're a live streamer. You definitely want to be paying attention because some of these other platforms don't know that yet. And we were talking about it beforehand. So I've had the pleasure of having Annette McDonald on the Tim and Jim show. I think it was actually, time's flying so fast. It might have actually been last year. But what she did is she gave us some amazing pointers on just graphic basics that, people like me, I don't know about Chris, because Chris is a different level than me, wouldn't think. But a lot of times, simple is better.
Yes.
And so, Chris, I think that it's about that time because I know you're excited to talk to her. So, ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, the star of the show, it's not Jim, it's not Chris, it's Annette McDonald from Easil. Welcome to the show, Annette.
Hey, guys. Nice to be here. Thank you so much for having me.
Good morning.
I'm super excited. Good morning. It's Tuesday. Happy Tuesday to everyone over here and happy Monday to everyone over that side.
Well, and I always love the Australian accents. I was stationed in Hawaii for 4 years. I'll just say a long time ago. And you guys would like to take holidays to Hawaii. So it's always so cool to talk to these Australian ladies, and I just always have loved the accent. Of course, you guys may like our accents because I think we probably sound like we have an accent to you. It's pretty funny.
You do. And I think ours sounds awful. But anyway, I love your accent. It's awesome.
But Australia, I don't know about you, Chris, is definitely on my, and I don't like the term bucket list, but it's on my list of places to go. It's definitely in the top 3.
100%. Yeah, absolutely. It's not easy or inexpensive to get there, but yeah, absolutely is definitely on the bucket list for my family to travel there as well. And so, have you been there all your life, Annette? Is that where you were born and raised? Or?
Yeah. This is where I've been. So, as you know, it's a huge country. So I grew up about and here we are. I'll be 800 kilometers away from here. So I don't know what that is in miles, along a 2-hour flight away from where I am now. We'll put it that way. Down in Melbourne, and moved up to Queensland, and I'm on a beachside town called the Gold Coast, Surfers Paradise. So it's really, really beautiful here, and I hope you guys can make it when we open up Fortress Australia back to the world, and you guys can come and visit. It's a beautiful place to be.
That sounds amazing.
Yes. So let's. I think we should get into Easil, and I think a lot of people, and when I bring up Easil, and I've done it a number of times, and I spoke about this earlier at the intro. Annette, is everything that you see on Dealcasters and Dealcasters Live started in Easil. I started creating everything in Easil. And people know a lot of other either web-based platforms or applications like Photoshop and others to create graphics. And one of the things that I loved mostly about Easil was I'm not good at creating something from scratch. I'm not someone who, like yourself, is an accomplished graphic artist. I didn't go to school to do that, to study that. In fact, I probably, when I was putting together flyers for bands and things that I did years ago, I didn't want to do it. I just had, I was the one that, drew the short straw or whatever. And so I had to learn it. And eventually I got pretty good at it. But I've never been one that could do something from scratch. But the thing I love most about Easil is it gives you the components that you can just take your existing brand and just be off and running with something that, and I told you this earlier, I mean this in the best possible way, simple. Because I think a lot of things, when people think graphics and they think visuals, they forget that they want to pile in all of these words and they want to pile in all of this information, but no one's going to see when you're scrolling by and thumbing by, and you want to be impactful and memorable and sometimes simple with what you do. So I wanted to just, talk a little bit about Easil and maybe the origins of how you founded Easil and sort of the foundation and the elements and the key components of Easil.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, firstly, I'll let you in on a secret, Chris. So you talk about wanting to start with a template and not starting with a blank page. The thing is, nobody wants to do that. Trained graphic designers don't want to do that. Why would you want to start from scratch every time when there is a layout that you could already start with and then tweak from there? It takes so much of that thinking away from it, especially when you're talking about live streaming, which we'll get to shortly. But in regards to where Easil started, I'll run you through really quickly. So as you said, I'm a graphic designer and I've had a graphic design studio and agency now for over 20 years. So a long time ago, that grew to be really quite a big studio. We had over 30 team members and most of them being graphic designers. And we got to a stage where we were backlogged with work for 2 weeks. There wasn't any sort of software online like there is now where people were doing their own stuff. So they were either forced to use Photoshop or InDesign on all of those products and learn that, or they were using things like Word or Paint to create their graphics, but nothing in between. So there was this big hole for people being able to do things themselves. So they were coming to us for everything or doing really low-level graphics which weren't up to scratch. So we got really busy, as I said. So our studio was 2-3 weeks behind. People were starting to complain about our time frames, and we thought there has to be a better way to do this. So we wanted our clients to be able to access high quality design, so stuff that we were doing, but make small changes for themselves. So we came up with a software, and it was built internally for us originally. So a way for our clients to come in, access their designs and just make a few small tweaks. So if they had a change to a time or a day or something like that, that they could go in and do that, but not demolish the rest of the design, because we wanted to protect that. That was really important to us, because obviously it was still our name on the line as an agency that, they were getting their graphics done by us, but we needed to devise that way that we could protect it, but give them some freedom. So we came up with a really basic version of Easil that wasn't called Easil at that stage, and we built that out, and our clients absolutely loved it. They loved that they could jump in at any time. They wouldn't have to go through the rigmarole of emailing us, sending it to an account manager, then it goes to a graphic designer, back to the account manager, emails it back to them. They've got another change, and you go around and around and around. They could just jump in and make those changes. So we started off basic, and then we thought, okay, they're asking for more. They're asking for more. And as it goes, they still do that now that Easil is built, and it will never stop. But we built that for our team and for our clients. And eventually, as our clients left where they may have been working at the time and went to another business, they would say, hey, we want to use that tool. And we went, well, let's do this properly. And so we rebuilt it into Easil, into a product that we took out to the public. So that's pretty much a short story of how it all started.
Now, had you done designs for people sort of a la carte or as a business out, prior to Easil? So, someone would come to you and so you were creating designs from scratch originally. Was that sort of the onus of Easil, sort of like, I need to create something that's going to do a lot of the same stuff and I don't have to keep rebuilding the wheel every time that I do it?
Yeah, so we went through a couple of stages. So when I first started as a graphic designer on my own, that's what I would do. I would create all those templates, and every time a client would come to me, I would be pretty much starting from scratch. I mean, sometimes, as you would know, if there's a band that comes back and they've got a new gig somewhere else, then you would use the same flyer, make a copy and make adjustments to that. So you would do both of that stuff, but most of it is, like you say, a la carte. They would be coming in, order this, you would start from scratch. It would take a long time. Like graphic design from scratch for a band poster might take a couple of hours to 3 hours every time you're doing something new. What happened after that is that I actually got a contract for one of Australia's largest pub and hospitality groups. So they've got 300 plus venues, and I started building out catalogs for them. And eventually what happened was I built almost like an online store for them where they could see the designs and they could order them, and they would submit their changes to those designs, and I'd send it back. So there would be that starting point for them to pick their design like a store, and we would make those changes. And then we went, this still isn't cutting it. We're getting too busy, obviously, with that many venues just from one client. That was a lot to cope with, but we obviously had other clients on top of that as well. So it went from start from scratch on everything, building out a catalog for a few clients where they could shop online and submit their changes, through to DIY interaction as well through Easil.
Yeah, it's crazy. It's not just graphic design, but other businesses as well. If you are in any sort of business where you create something, at some point you need to, send it over to that person and have them, well, I like this and I don't like this, and I like this and I don't like this. And it's just like, before the end of it, you're just like, how many hours have I spent doing all of these things, where you just want to say, hey, what if I just gave you something and you were to select and click on things, and it would be really easy for you to just maybe do some things yourself and then send it over to me, and then I can just kind of, maybe put something, nice over top of it to give it that extra push. But I mean, there's been so many hours that I've spent, either if it's editing video or or doing graphics or doing logos, all of that kind of stuff. It's just like, you want to be specialized, but it can take so long to do that for an individual, and it can be so expensive for someone. For a specialized graphic designer, you're better off just using something like Easil, or something that has some sort of template that you can start from.
Absolutely. And like you say, I mean, it can be expensive, and there's some parts of it where you might decide, I really want to allocate some budget to getting my logo done. That's a little bit more challenging than going in and doing a promo graphic or some live show overlays. And it's something that you'll obviously keep for many, many years. So you might want to pick and choose where you allocate that budget and that spend and get something done that you can then use. But those small bits and pieces that you're changing day to day or week to week, that can get so expensive with paying a designer to do it for you every single time. So there's not many people that can do that even years into business, let alone when they're starting out.
Yeah, and I tell you, one of the things that I have seen, because Annette, I think I've been using Easil. I've forgotten how long I've been using it, but it's like, once you guys like kind of came out on the scene, it might have been like, I want to say, was it at Social Media Marketing World in 2019 that people started to pay a little bit more attention to you guys?
Yeah, I think so. That was the first one I went to. So yeah, 2019, we got a fair few shout outs there that I didn't even know about until I got there, which was pretty exciting. But yeah, that's where we had a fair bit of buzz starting to happen, which is cool.
And you guys have done a really great job. It's like, as these new platforms come out, it's like you're always coming out with like the templates. Like, hey, we've got, you've got templates for, even like the iPhone, for people wanting to make their own little iPhone covers and things of that nature, that a lot of us wouldn't think about that. But it's like, oh, it's kind of nice to be able to take a template, right? Because I sure as heck couldn't figure it out, and make it your own. And I think that's the other thing you both hit on, right? Logos. Sometimes people get really, wrapped up in logos. And, I would much rather someone give me a logo than have to create a logo, because I think that is an art all in of itself, even in a sense separate from the design, because the design is so much of a bigger thing in putting it all together. And I know when you were on the Tim and Jim show, we talked about too, right? I think sometimes people try to get too complicated, right? There's some really, basic things that people should think about when it comes to design. Could you hit on a couple of those things that people should think about, like even when they're creating live show graphics? What are maybe some of those basic
Yeah,
principles?
yeah, totally. So I think when you're using a template, you should know that that template's been created by a professional for a reason. So there's some balance to that template, and you should always be replacing like for like. So if there's a heading area and a copy area and an image area, if you're a beginner, you should really try and honor the positions and the balance of that template. So think of it like a recipe. It's been put together by someone that knows what they're doing. And if you swap something out or add too much out into that recipe, and I'll tell you, I'm a really bad cook. So, if I'm following a recipe and I go, oh, I don't like the sound of that, I'm going to switch this out for something else. That's not going to work for me. I've got to follow that recipe to a T for that to work for me, because I'm what you would call a very beginner cook. So if you're a beginner designer, pick that template, choose a template that works for the amount of content that you've got to display, and swap things out like for like. So if your heading's a little bit bigger than the area that's allocated, then make your font a little bit smaller to fit into that dedicated space. Replace that image for something that's similar in weight. So if there's a image placeholder of me and you wanted to swap it out for Chris, then you'd position Chris in about the same position where I am. And if there's copy and things like that, then you replace that for about the same amount of text. Change colors like for like. So if you've got a dark color in the template, pick the darkest color from your brand kit. So start out always going like for like, and then see how that looks before you start adding those other ingredients on, because that's when you can really throw out that balance of that recipe.
I love that. That's a great way to, because I can relate to you when it comes to the cooking. As my wife would tell you, we would starve otherwise.
Totally. My husband does not like my cooking. I'll stick to design.
I'm so guilty of this, and a lot of times I'll start with an easel template, and I'll pull in our logo, and of course we've got our brand colors that we have for everything, and then I'll be like, okay, I've got to do this, and I've got to do this, and then I got to do this, and so I need to expand this, and I'm not thinking, like you said, that hey, a professional made this with balance, and so from a visual perspective, maybe the more I'm trying to fit in, the worse I'm actually making it. And so inevitably what happens, Annette, is I'll get to the end of it and I'll go, okay, I've got everything in there. And then I'll sort of like pan out, and I do what's called a thumb by factor, where I try to get it smaller on the screen, and I'll go, nobody's going to click on that. So I'm like, what do I need to pull away? And so I think the mindset that you're talking about is like, you can tweak it and pull in all of your stuff and your colors and your brand and everything, but don't try to pile in too much, because you're going the wrong direction. After a certain point, there's a point of no return where you just need to say, you know what, maybe I don't need to put this in there. Maybe I can pull this out, or say this more succinctly, or like you said, stay true to some fonts. Which I know fonts, according to the coffee mug that you sent to us earlier, that was available on Amazon, where you're secretly judging our font choice. This is the other thing: as much as I'm fanboying, at the same time I'm thinking, is she judging all of the fonts that I'm using? Is she going, how dare Chris change this template to this? But how do you being a graphic artist, I guess, to turn this into more of a question, is like, being a musician and hearing music for the longest time, or being a producer and hearing, voice and being a podcast editor, you hear things that 98% 8% of people don't hear, or you might see things that 98% of people don't hear, but you're a specialist. You've done this for years, and so you see those things. So how do you balance that for yourself and be able to look at something and say, well, they're doing this wrong, and they're doing this wrong, and they're doing this wrong, but I do like something that they're also doing visually?
I think it is difficult because I'm a perfectionist. So I will say I am a little bit judgy. I'll put it out there. I won't pretend that I don't judge, but I think you need to start to let it go and then appreciate that people are giving it a go and that the majority of people don't actually see that. So we're seeing it as specialists, like you say. A lot of the things that you're talking about with sound and production, I would never pick that up, nor would the bulk of the public. So I think you need to let it go and appreciate that you do have that talent and you can use it at certain times, but you don't need to push the point. Like, I've been there designing with people for over 20 years and we'll do those proofs and people come back and say, can you add this thing over here? And I'm cringing inside at their requests. But if they really, really want that, I can let them know why we wouldn't do that, or I'll give them 2 options to try and sway them to where I want them to be. But at the end, if they want what they want and there's a reason behind that, then you just need to let it go. And it won't destroy their brand in most instances. You know, if it's a graphic that they're putting up for a promo, it may not be perfectly balanced. Just let it go. And sometimes that organic, well, quite often that organic sort of look that isn't perfectly polished like an ad does just as well or better than that ad looking content anyway. So I'm definitely, as I age and as I get more experienced, I'm just letting it go, because it's great that people are giving a go, you know, not relying on us for that perfect look every single time.
Wow. Yeah, that's
yeah.
a great point.
You're preaching. You're like I'm a perfectionist as well, and but you have to constantly remind yourself exactly what you're saying, you know. Even myself, I have this acronym that I stole from a guy named Craig Rochelle, and it's GETMO, and it stands for good enough to move on. Because if I were to make something super perfect for this show that we have today, and of course I'm thinking to myself, okay, I got to create this thumbnail. It's Annette McDonald, you know, and I'm using Easil, and should I use this font or should I, you know, all of those things are in my mind as a perfectionist. And you just have to say, this is good enough to move on, because I can't spend 4 hours on a thumbnail. I just can't. That's just, I won't get anything else done if I do that. But, you know, thank God Easil works really well to create not only thumbnails, but lower thirds and all kinds of stuff for live streamers. And Annette, I know we have a ton of live streamers that watch our show, that listen to our podcast. And whenever I talk to someone about Easil and they either have sort of a cursory knowledge of it or don't know what it is, and maybe they know something more popular, whether it's Canva or they use Photoshop or whatever the various things that there are out there. And I tell them that you've created live stream templates. That's when I think the light bulbs start to go off. And for, you know, Jim and I, that's why we started there with Dealcasters, is because you have all of this great all these great professional looking graphics that are already created for your live stream show. That includes, like, you have a set generally for a live stream show, right? It's a thumbnail. It's and it varies by design, but mostly it's a couple of sets of lower thirds, maybe something that could be for a timer if you use a timer, so you could brand it for that, maybe overlay your timer underneath it, or over top of it, I should say, and then, you know, sort of an intro slide if you've got a guest, and that type of thing. And then when I tell people that seems to be when people, you know, especially from the live streaming industry, the light bulbs start to go on. Are you starting to see that as well for you? Are you starting to see a lot more live streamers lean into Easil for their shows?
Definitely. I mean, I think once you have that set of templates, like you say, like there's the intro graphic that doubles up as your thumbnail, your lower thirds, your guest overlays, all those different camera angles, which we do mostly work with the StreamYard sort of cameras, you know, 3, 4, up to 6 or more cameras. you can really match that in with your run of shows. So you can do all of that planning. Once you know you've got your guests coming in, you can batch create all of that stuff, either just for that show or for 3 to 4 shows coming up, and have all of that done in one go and plug it into StreamYard or Ecamm or whatever you're using, and just cut down that production time, but really level up the look of your production so quickly. So yeah, it's definitely, we're seeing a lot of people in your industry coming in and using that and really loving how quickly they can do that and how they can cut down that thinking time of what do I need for each show, like create their own template once with all of those different screens, and then come in the next week, make a copy of it, update the guests, update the photos, and you're ready to start promoting. And you've cut that right down to maybe 5 to 10 minutes for each different show, instead of starting from scratch and pulling your hair out over what you have to do each and every time.
Yeah, I love that. I mean, that's like with the Tim and Jim show, and Chris created our original template for us. And then I just adjust it because, we actually use, you guys have the workspace. So Chris and I share a workspace. So it's like he shares it with me. I'm able to go in there. It's like, okay, I even did the template when you were on the show, Annette, all by myself. Chris didn't have to help me. And it's what makes it, that's what makes it nice, is it's like so easy, as I call myself, sometimes a caveman can do it. And so I think that's part of the beauty of it, is that it is simple, right? Because we need that simplicity, because it's like, I got to get that template done. I want to get it out so we can, be promoting the show with the thumbnail. And so if I had to spend all this time starting from from scratch every time, I think it would become very frustrating. And I think people would even sometimes like, it would almost become a fear of being able to move forward and doing their shows, because they're like, oh, well, I can never get my graphics to look right, or I'm going to pay an arm and a leg to get someone to do it for me.
That's right. You really want to get rid of any of those blockers, don't you? Like any excuse not to move forward. So get it done, have a template ready to go, and it's just something that you have, that you do. Or you could even outsource it to a VA. Like you say, you can go into that workspace and you can share those designs with somebody else and they can get it done for you. But it's that quick that if there is, or it's that easy, I should say, that if there's a change to a guest time or a show or something like that, you can jump in and make those changes and download your graphic and be done in a minute. So it's having that access to be able to do it if you need to. And if you don't want to do it, share it out to someone else, but still have that ownership of those files in your Easil account. So you've always got control of them, which is, a big thing with using a graphic designer. Even with us, you'll get those email requests at any time of the day or night, and people are always in a hurry. But if you're not online or awake, then obviously you're not going to see that for 6 or 7 hours at the earliest and get that action for them. People need to have access to that stuff these days with all the shows and promotions and everything. You can just do it yourself, not rely on anyone else.
And the other thing I love about the software is that it's different. And when I say different, I say different from other software, whether it's web-based or other template-based software that's out there, and I don't know if that was intentional or not, but for me, I just feel like there's I subscribe to probably too many. Jim knows this, probably to too many things in general, but especially things that revolve around design, because I want to be able to do some things that some things can't, and not everything can do everything that I want it to do. So you have to, do whatever. And if somebody's going to choose one, they're going to choose, if it's Easil, or if they're going to choose, hiring a VA or whatever it is. But maybe if you could explain why Easil is different than some of these other services, whether it's obviously Photoshop. I wouldn't say Easil and Photoshop are the same thing. It's those different. Maybe Adobe Spark would be a better comparison, I guess, to Easil and to Canva and some of these other sort of graphics things. But the thing I love about Easil is not just the designs and just the beauty of it and the ease of it, but maybe explain to me or to the car buying public here on Amazon, sort of what you feel are the differentiators for Easil.
Yeah, definitely. So I think, as you say, like there's some similarities between us and we get compared to Canva and Adobe Spark and a lot of those online editors. A lot of the drag and drop aspect of those, we are quite similar. You can go in and edit, text and images. All of that's pretty easy to pick up if you've used Easil. You can use Canva and vice versa, and Adobe Spark. We're all similar like that. But there's a few differences to how we built out Easil from the start, which came from our agency background and our reasoning for wanting our templates to always be professional looking at the end. So when we built out Easil in the editor, we put in some tools for working with our clients that would protect that. So there's fine-grained permissions in Easil that let you lock down every element like in a fine-grained way. So for example, if you've got a text box and you create a template, you can say you can only use this font and you can only use this font size, you can only use this color on this text box and so forth. And you can do that on everything in your design. So you can say you can replace this image, but you can't move it from the left to the right and so on and so forth. There's a ton of control in that. So you build out your templates, and if you're working with, say if you guys were producing a show for someone, but you wanted to let them in to put in those names and change the guest image each week, I should say, they can easily do that, but they won't ruin the template. So all of that control is in there, and it's optional,
I did not
of
know
course.
that.
You
I
didn't
had no
know.
idea that was
No,
existed.
so that's a whole section in there, and yeah, you can lock if you don't trust Jim. Tim, sorry, Jim.
I don't trust myself. No.
Yeah, I don't trust myself with my name. Sorry.
There's always the undo button. That's the
Yeah. If you don't trust your clients with that, or you just want to protect the integrity of those designs and let them in to do their thing, you can do that with a click of a button. And it's, as I said, fine grained, so you can do as little or as much as you want with that. There's also an approvals workflow in there. So with that, you can leave it open or you can lock it down, but you can prevent them from downloading their files before you actually give that approval. So that's another side of it. And the other big side that you're probably not familiar with is we've actually built out the ability to have multiple brands. So if you're working with tons of different clients, you can create sub-teams within Easil, and each one of those sub-teams has their own brand kit. You can create their own templates, and you can add your own team members to that sub-team specifically. So agency-wise, we've got lots of agencies using Easil for that reason. They build out a different sub-team for each of their clients. They might build out their live show templates for them and say you can access this and your promo graphics, but you can't access, a whole bunch of other stuff they don't want them to touch, but stuff that they want their clients to be going in and not liaising with them for every change. They allow them access to that, and they've got the brand locked down, and they know that it's under control, but the clients are happy with having that access as well. So it's sort of a sticky point for agencies to, keep their clients sticky as well. And it's a good tool for them to be able to do that and take some of that tedious design off their hands and let the clients come in and use Easil and do that stuff themselves as well. So they build out their own template catalogs. That's probably an easier way to say it. So you could say, if you were working and creating stuff for me at Easil, you could build out all those templates, invite me, invite one of my other designers, but you could control what we're actually working on.
Very
wow.
cool.
Jim, it looks like I have my homework cut out.
You
for
had
me.
no idea.
I spend that. That's the other thing too, Annette, is like I probably know just enough to be dangerous on all of this software that I use. It's just like, but then all of a sudden someone like you gets on a show and says, "Oh, did you know you could do this, this, and this, and this, and it could save you 16 hours in a day?" Oh, okay, cool. And so yeah, you've just blown my mind, and now I'm thinking how many hours I spent that I could have avoided doing that by creating all of these different brands for a lot. So yeah, I would imagine like for agencies, this has got to be massive to be able to say, not only to be able to organize everything and to say, okay, this can or can't be done based on this particular client sizing, whatever it is, but also like to be able to say, okay, client X, here you go. You can just do this. And if you want to change the name on your lower third every time, or you want to change this, here it is. You can go ahead and do that with with certain sort of parameters around that. That's huge.
It's huge. And the thing is, a lot of graphic designers, and I was like this when I first went into this whole concept of letting people DIY, they're really afraid to let go, and they think, oh, they'll be losing revenue. And, if they're not doing every little graphic for their client, then, they're losing money, and that's not great for business. But you need to let that go, because your clients are doing it anyway. They're creating those graphics somewhere else. So why not make it with you and give them a reason to stay with you? So a lot of our clients have their clients on as retainers through their agencies, and they will add on different graphics into their catalog every month for them. And their clients love that. And we do that for our clients as well, obviously, leading the pack. So yeah, you can come in and you've got your designs, and, you might be speaking to your clients and they go, I've seen something cool. It may be a lead magnet, or it might be a GIF, or it might be something like that. And they go, I'd really love to have that. And then the next month or so they come in and you've created that for them. Like, it's that surprise that you can provide them on their retainer, that they'll just love you for that. Like, there's a reason for them to stick with you, as opposed to going to a different agency or using a different software. So if you can provide that reason, why not do that, as opposed to having that fear of letting go from doing everything for them?
Absolutely. It's a differentiator. It's added value for a client that would much rather and prefer to do that. And it saves you time. Right. So let them kind of kick that can around in their corner, and you're still, client, and they're happy to do that. And like you said, if they're doing it already, it's like, what are you doing on the other side of your computer that's such a secret that they couldn't figure out already? Right. So why not just be transparent and say, hey, listen, we've created this for you. Now, if you want to make any changes, you want to do, like, here you go. And it's just like, really? I don't have to go through the toll booth every time with you?
Yes,
nope.
Exactly. And how much will you love your supplier for doing that for you? Like, just having that freedom to do it. And quite often they'll still say, I'm too busy anyway, but they will love that they can when they need to. That one time when you're not available and they need something in the middle of the night and they can jump in there and make that change themselves, that's when they'll go, it's all worth it. Like, I may not need it all the time, but I'm so thankful that I could get into that file and make that change that one time on my own without hassling you.
Yeah, very true. Well, I think at times like Chris, we've seen before where like a lower third has been made and maybe there was a misspelling. And if the client could just go in and make that correction, as opposed to like, I got to get it back to the designer and the designer's got to make that. I mean, that would be huge. Huge.
Totally. And that's frustrating for everyone. It's soul destroying for graphic designers to get those changes back. Like, no one likes having these little changes coming back and having to email them back and go through that whole process time and time again. And it's really frustrating for the client side to go, oh my God, that designer can never spell that name right. And they're sending it back to me and I have to ask them again and again to make this change for me. Like, it's so frustrating.
So what I'd like to be able to do now, because we're sitting here talking about this beautiful piece of software, and maybe some of the folks that are watching on Amazon or any of the other tubes. And by the way, if you're not on Amazon, and we see that there are people watching, so we see you. You can come to dealcasters.live where the party's at, where Annette McDonald has given us her keys to making great graphics, including a coffee mug that says she's secretly judging your font for your font choice. But I want to do, if you would allow me to show my my browser here and kind of show people what, if you're a live streamer, it's because it's just so great and so easy and there's just a few kind of things that I'd love to be able to do a screen share and be able to show that. And Jim, I know there's another number of people that are in the chat on Amazon, so we want to get to any questions or comments from there. Is that cool, Annette, or is that?
Yeah, let's see what you've got, Chris.
Okay, just secretly judging my font choice, Jim. Yeah. All right, so this is the sort of the basic intro. If you are a an Easil subscriber. And so when you go in here, these templates, you can search for the digital screens and your live stream, and you could just see. Let me maximize this a little bit so we can see this a little bit better. How about that? And so you're going to be able to see some designs. Now, the thing that I love about this, Annette, is like, I'm not looking at this and saying, oh, this looks like my show. What I do is I look at it, it's almost like a, I don't know, like a straw man or sort of a basic concept. Obviously, these are not the colors of Dealcasters, and there are other people, but this template right here I use for another client of mine. And this template right here was what I used for the thumbnail that you see on today's show. But I'll go down here and I'll choose a template that we used for Dealcasters just to show you. This right here, ladies and gentlemen, from the car buying public of Amazon, is where Dealcasters started. It started from this template right here. This guy looks nothing like me or Jim. He kind of has my hair a little bit if I did that, right? But
he's actually a combo of both of you guys.
Yeah,
is he?
He's got
Okay,
this double in the hair.
Yeah. Right. But this is a general sort of live stream template where you're going to have your show sort of thumbnail, and then you're going to have, this is the next slide, which is your countdown, and then here's a lower third that's on the left, and I think there's a lower third that's on the right as well if you've got a guest, so you want to have an intro slide. This is, Jim, if you're looking at this right now, you know this is exactly the template that I used up until maybe a couple of weeks ago, and we still use this occasionally as our intro slide. There's your right lower third. Here is if you wanted to have, two side by side, like maybe a guest look, you could do that. And then a thank you slide is kind of generally, Annette, what you guys use as far as your live stream templates are concerned. But what you do here is just as easy as going, okay, my logo, I'll go to images right here. I went ahead and maximize, but I'm going to have to. Browser's being funky.
While Chris is playing with that too, Annette, I know one of the questions we've had is, like, we had the one slide that showed the two windows for cameras. Is it easy to adjust? Do you guys have it kind of built in, like if we wanted to look like we have now, to put those windows in?
Yeah, absolutely. So as Chris is going through there's a tab underneath where he is at the moment. So he's in the images tab, and there's a graphics tab underneath that. And if you type into that top search field, overlays, there's a whole range of graphic. You need to type it in correctly, Chris. Type it in to overlay. Overlay, sorry, my fault. I thought you had a typo. Overlay. So there's all these graphics, as you can see. There's there's even circle ones. There's the camera angle with the 5 different screens. All of these ones here, you can drag and drop them onto any of those templates. And then once they're on your design, drag them to that corner, stretch them out to the full camera size, and you can change the color of those. So what's important when you're designing these, when they're overlays, is to make sure that you've got nothing else behind them. So at the moment, Chris is just playing around with the colors and things like that. And there's an image behind them. But what you need to do is make sure that there's nothing behind them and that your background is set to transparent, because those transparent areas are what is going to show through on your video content. And those graphic areas, so like that red area of the graphic at the moment, is what would be sitting on top of your cameras. So you need to, Chris, if you wanted to show that, if you went and took off that background where you are now, if you click up into that color, just that color chip where you are, make that transparent. That's basically, when you see a checkerboard, that basically is where you would see the people and the cameras on your show, and everything sitting on top in graphics is what is branding your show. So from here, you can change the color of that. You could add, look, there's not much space in this type of layout when you've got 5 people on screen, obviously. So you'd probably keep it fairly simple by just applying your brand color or something that matches your show, and maybe have an icon or something like that in one of those corners to keep it quite simple but branded. But when you've got those layouts, like a further down in this example that we're looking at, where there's two people or one person on the show, you've got a little bit more room to put some brand or other things on there. So like on that lower third, you can put that detail of maybe social handles. You could even pop a little graphic next to that, a logo if you wanted to feature that for your guest.
Yeah. So you can see this right here. This was the lower third that we used for the show today. That's where this thing started, but it's been resized. Obviously, we added the Easil logo, the Easil, all of this stuff we brought into this. And so if we go to images here and you want this to be the color of your show, you can easily upload your images. And this is one thing that I love, and one of the many things I love here is if I were to pop this in, just to have this logo pop in here. And so this is the Dealcasters logo. And I want this lower third, let me move this a little bit out of the way. So this is just on there. I can remove it at any one given time. But if I wanted, what I end up doing is I want all of these colors that are on this lower third to be in this color scheme. So I just click on this, and then I go down here and look here in this little spot right here is that Dealcasters Live logo that I dragged in. And here are all the colors associated with that logo. So I can start changing it based on the color scheme of the Dealcasters Live logo. And so I can say, okay, that's the purple from here. Okay. And I want this to, not this, that's the font. I want this to be maybe that. And maybe I want this to be, that's pretty close to it, but we'll make it different. But like you said, Annette, we can actually do this and move this smaller, make this smaller, kind of get this out of the way. Maybe this becomes the name eventually of the particular show. But what we did here, like we did in this lower third is, and what I do is I bring in the logo from the guest. And so a lot of times our guests will be like, wow, that's really cool. I've never been on a show where my lower third actually had my logo in it. That was really cool. And it's like, yeah, it took me 3 minutes to do an easel.
Yeah.
So I just had to upload the logo up here into this, and there it is right there. You can see. And I put it over in that spot. Obviously, this is on the different size, and you just kind of drag it in there. And there you have a lower third. Super easy to do.
Super easy.
And that alone, that type of deal. I'm now noticing that I'm out of the screen. That type of deal, has gotten so much more attention from people. Just wow, that little attention to detail that you did, and Easil made it easy for us to be able to do this from a template perspective, because if I had to build this thing every show that we did, I'd never get anything else done. But we built this template, and all I got to do is find a graphic, pull it in every time. And typically everybody has a little small graphic that they can put on a lower third or whatever. And when you've got an intro slide and you're introducing somebody like we did today for you, and you've got this slide right here, all you got to do is replace this person with somebody else. Oh, who's this? Oh. Well, you've got a chair in the picture.
Look at you. I'm floating on a chair.
Let me get it like this. But you get the point. That took me 2 seconds. And from the other thing that I've noticed that other web-based graphic software doesn't have, that Easil does, is the ability to go into these layers and to adjust these layers, which other graphic software does not. So let's just say I wanted this picture of you. Let me expand this out a little bit. You're probably cringing right now. I'm guessing. There's me floating right? But if I wanted you sort of behind this this thing in the corner, I can go into page 4. and find this square, which I think is right there. It is, right? And so I just grab the picture of you and I make sure that you are placed behind it so that I think I should go right here.
There we go.
Yeah,
that's it.
there.
Yeah,
So,
perfect.
And so that layer functionality is like a Photoshop thing, right? But not every web-based. This is just, that to me is another differentiator that Easil has. So you can, if you think like layers, you can do a lot more things with Easil as well.
Yeah. So another reason I like layers is because, see how you've got that there's a little icon to the side of each layer. So you can actually click on the eye. So say if you click on that one next to me, my name. So if you just go up there and click on that little eye, you can actually toggle that off. So for beginner designers, I think sometimes you delete things off templates and you think, oh, I won't need that. But a safer way to do it is actually just to turn it off. And that way, if you change your mind, in a couple of days or even in a couple of changes, you could go in and turn that back on and easily revert, and you could switch and see which ones look better too. So it's a non-destructive way of working with, different layers, rather than just saying, I don't need that, and deleting and then pulling your hair out a few minutes later, working out, no, that was actually better where it was, and repositioning it. Just use that little hide icon and make your changes, and then see if you actually want to delete that or not. So it's a good way to work as well.
Yeah, I've used it for thumbnails on YouTube too, and I like how easy it is like you said, because I can say I like this basic setup. Now I'm going to change things around so that it looks the way I want it to look, and I do love the fact that you can kind of turn things on, turn things off, and say okay, or I'll change the font here, see what it looks like, and it really makes it simple.
Yeah.
And, so that's so important.
Yeah, and we love hearing what the community is saying about these types of overlays too. So, when they're using different software or different cameras and different things like that, then we keep on adding those sorts of overlays into that graphics library so that you don't need to create them, because it's tricky to get those transparent areas. So most software, including ours, you can't create like a background and then go in and delete it. So we create those graphics that you're adding on top. So, we have had people say, oh, I don't really want those to be squares. I want my guests to show up as circles. So we created those overlays where there's 2 circles, and then you can work around that. So, it might be looking out of round windows, or just different things that look a little bit more creative in your show as you're producing. We definitely listen to our audience to like what they want to have added, and we put that in our library so they can use them.
That's very
Look at
cool.
you.
I know you got him. See, you taught him some new things in it, so now he's playing around with it more. And
yeah,
so now
and
I gotta line
underneath
you up
that,
so your head's not cut off. Let me do this.
Underneath that, where you've got the layers, is that, see on the side there, you've got that locking tab underneath, is where you can go in and control all of those permissions. So there's that whole new section for you to play with, Chris.
Oh God, Annette, you gave me so much homework.
Yeah, so you can set all of those brand colors. That's really when you're working with someone that you don't trust or that you're guiding, putting in all of that protection stuff. So you've got your document restrictions and your element level restrictions as well. So you can really drill down and protect that template, or even, set yourself up as well, because sometimes you can get distracted when you're using a template and you might decide you want to use a different font. But if you've locked down and said brand fonts only, the next time you go in, you won't even see those other fonts. So yeah, sometimes it's handy just to control yourself from bad design.
Annette, what are some of the maybe if you can tell us, what are some of the new features or things that you guys are working at Easil to because I know you're always working to improve the product.
Well, we're always working. I don't think Easil will ever be finished. So at the moment, we've got a feature that's in beta, which is about really making your promotion graphics more efficient in terms of creating like a set. So as we look at this design, it's a set of graphics that are all the same size. But when you've got your live show, as you guys would know, you're promoting on so many different spaces. So all of those spaces and platforms have got different dimensions and orientations. So you'll have stories that are a portrait graphic, and then you might have your Twitter, which is your landscape, and then you've got Instagram, which is a square. So you need all these different graphics, which is a whole other headache in promoting your show or promoting anything. So what we're working on at the moment, and it's just out there in beta at the moment, is the ability to build out a promotional set template. So when you open it up, you've got all of those sizes, and you can go in and make a text change in one of them, right click, and then update collection, which means that change will then populate to the rest of your resizes.
Wow.
It's kind of hard to say without actually, without seeing it. But instead of having all those different sizes and going, I've got that Instagram size and I'll change the name on that, and then I need to click and change it on the next one, it is that right click that populates both text, and also if you drag and drop an image and then right click and update collection, it will populate that image into all those resizes as well. So we're always working on efficiencies and making things easier for beginner graphic designers. So tools like that the color palette generator that Chris was showing, when you drag and drop an image, it shows you the colors, because choosing colors is really difficult. So that can give you a brand color palette just like that, even if you don't have one, and definitely things for efficiency. There's a fair bit more coming. I don't want to talk too much about what is coming because someone's always listening.
That's right. That's right. And that's why I said what you could share. Yeah, because I think even as sometimes the challenge is fonts, right? Because you do have fonts that come with Easil. You're able to upload fonts as well, but sometimes it's like I might see like I really like that font, but I don't know what it is, and so I think I don't know, maybe that's something that's coming to help us with our fonts.
Do you mean so when you see it in a different design, or
yeah, exactly.
Within Easil or somewhere else?
Stay somewhere else, but I want to use it in Easil.
There's some tools out there that you can do to actually work out what the font is. So if you've got you can take a photo of anything. If you're out and about and see a font on a sign or somewhere that you like, you can take a photo and you can upload it to what the font. So there's tools that you can go in. It'll ask you a few questions about the font, and you upload it, and it uses AI to recognize what it is, and it will generate 3 or 4 different suggestions to what that font is. If it can't actually tell you exactly what it is, it'll give you some options that are similar. So there's a few tools out there that can actually do that. That's not on our roadmap at the moment for that type of thing, because I think there's a whole other side attached to it, that it's more about then being able to buy that font as well. So a lot of font marketplaces have those types of things because they're obviously wanting to sell you those fonts as well. So if you're looking and they can get you to that font, it's a really good pathway to buying that font.
Yeah, that's kind of wild west. Whenever I've been to a point where it's like I want to either emulate that font, and I'm really just doing it to try to be sort of consistent with something that I'm already doing. Whether it's like, okay, what's the Easil font that you've used? It's probably a brand that is not an exact font. It's probably, most of the time what people will do is they'll take a font and maybe change a letter in some sort of way to make it their logo, right? And so I know in Photoshop you can do this thing where you select select something on an image and match font, but half the time they give you like 12 options, and it's not an exact science, I think, for the most part, because it's like all of the characters for whatever that is are not going to be exact. So it's got to be incredibly difficult to do that, and probably not a huge use case scenario for a lot of people. It's more for like agencies and, individual entrepreneurs that are trying to match certain fonts for what they're doing.
I think so. So graphic designers, when you are taking on new clients, generally they do know their brand fonts and they will let you know, but you do get the occasional person that has a logo and they have no idea, and you need to recreate that logo and you need to work out what their brand fonts are and work backwards. But I think that really is more of, like you say, an agency or graphic designer side than the general person. Like I certainly am not offended that you don't know my brand font when I'm on as a guest on your show, but I love it that you've gone to the effort. If you found my logo, it's close, like it's great. But you found my logo, and I'm flattered and honored that you've gone to the effort of, you know, putting that on there, and that's really nice. But I think if you've got guests coming on and critiquing that you haven't using their brand fonts on your live show, then they're the wrong people. You don't need those sort of people on your show.
No, what's worse than that is
logo.
right. What's worse is like when Jim and I are on a show and I give them a folder with very specific logos and fonts and hex codes and all of that, and they've cobbled together something else that looks like, who knows what. That's what's worse. It's like I actually gave you the stuff to use, and you decided to either ignore it or do something else. That's what's worse.
That's offensive, isn't it? Because you've said these are my brand fonts, and they're saying, no, I don't like those, I'm going to choose something else. Then that's offensive. And again, you don't need those people in your life.
Right, we don't need that kind of negativity in our life.
Amazing. So Annette, you've given me homework. Thank you. Now I've got to go in and learn more than just to be dangerous on Easil. Our show is a lot. A lot of people will tune in and watch, and a lot of people that we talk to that watch our show are people that are. There's a lot of stuff, there's a lot of mind junk that prevents them from either going live or recording a podcast or, creating something, writing a blog, creating graphics, like all of these things that we talk about. And I'm sure you've dealt with numerous people over the years in your career, which has led you to be the founder and CEO of Easil and develop this great piece of software. What would you maybe leave to someone who is out there right now and feels like they're not a graphics person, or feels like they don't have an eye for design, and they feel like every time that they go and sit in front of their computer to do something that relates to design, they get stuck? What would you say to that person?
I would say absolutely, definitely start with a template. So whether it's Easil or whether it's another software online, find something that's free, get in there, get started and use a template. Replace things like for like, as I said earlier, and just start with that. Realize that is enough. What was that acronym that you said? Like just
Getmo.
Getmo.
Exactly.
Good enough to move on.
Exactly. And using a template and updating your details, putting a logo on there, changing the colors and the fonts is the max that you need to do. If you do a few of those things, then that's enough. So just do it, start promoting your show, get people on there, get people watching, and then come back and refine those graphics. And also, if you're using Easil, jump into our support and say, hey, I've created this. I'm not sure if this isn't working. Can you help me? And we can give you some advice as well. So we can definitely look at them and say, look, you might just need to change this font. It's a little bit too big, but we're more than happy to do that. And I jump in there too. Like I love getting into support and seeing what people are doing and helping them out. That's like our little chat as well. So more than happy to help people with those little bits of advice.
I can attest that is 100% true. So I've like the help is like there very quickly. And I have had a problem that someone named Annette chimed in and resolved for me at one point. And I was like, I texted Jim. I was like, is this Annette McDonald helping me with my issue? And he was like, probably. So that was amazing. I can attest that you do in fact do that. So Anita Sonia is chiming in over here on LinkedIn, and she wants to know if Easil has a free trial or a free version.
Yeah, so we have both. So you've got a 30-day trial of our Easil Plus. So that gives you look, I think it's over 10,000 templates now, and it gives you the ability to download those transparent PNGs that you need for your overlays. And then there is, after 30 days, there is a free version, but you don't actually have access to the PNG, but you can create all of your promotional graphics and download in your JPEG format. So it's $7.50 a month per user after that free trial, but you can definitely keep creating all that free stuff for as long as you like with that JPEG format output beyond the 30-day trial.
Yeah, the free trial was, it's so key. It's like I try everything for free for 30, 60 days, 90 days in some cases for whatever software would allow it. But like, I mean, this was like, okay, I already knew a couple of weeks in that I'm going to pay for this because I am using this for transparent overlays where there's lower thirds. So I need that PNG file. And, $750 a month is like for this type of software, and the ability and the flexibility to be able to do this for me was absolutely worth it. So Anita, I hope that answers your question. We're huge fans of Easil, and Jim's such a huge fan that somehow he dropped off the stream, Annette. I don't know what's happening there.
It's just you and me. Yeah, how rude.
Hopefully everything's okay with Dr. Fuse. But Annette, this has been amazing. Thank you so much for joining us. I hope that everybody here in the car buying public of Amazon, and those that listen to the podcast afterwards, and those that are on the tubes that decided not to come over to Amazon, will forgive you. We'll at least go and check out Easil. And if you go to easil.com, that's easy. You'll be able to get a free trial, be able to check it out, be able to plug in your brand, start using this stuff. And we just, Annette, we just talked about the live streaming template, but you've got templates built for everything. There's Pinterest stuff, there's LinkedIn stuff, there's Instagram stuff. Instagram stuff is like, there's a massive amount of Instagram stuff that you have built in there. So it's not, I just don't want everybody to think that this is only something that is for live streaming. I just feel like, for live streamers, that's a differentiator from other services, but you can use this for, am I forgetting anything? Pinterest, Instagram, LinkedIn?
But there's everything. There's any sorts of graphics that you need. There's even, you can create booklets, you can create PDFs, you can create documents, you can create banners, large format sort of prints and posters and all of that sort of stuff if you're a bricks and mortar business. So anything really. And then there's custom sizing. So if you've got something out of the box, you can create your own size as well. So we're seeing it used from everything from social graphics to, we've had a restaurant create a massive wall mural in Easil and have it printed and, fit out their whole restaurant. So yeah, the sky's the limit with what you can do.
God, that's amazing. That is killer. So thank you once again, Annette. We appreciate you joining us. And of course, for getting up as early as you did. It's still, way earlier than I ever woke up, at least in the past few months. So we appreciate you getting up for this show. And thanks again for everything.
It's been a pleasure. Thanks so much for having me on.
All right. And as usual, everyone, don't fear the gear.